And for the average person that doesn't know what free soloing is, what's the definition of it?
That's climbing without a rope, so climbing without protection, which is definitely what I'm most well known for now. But in the context of professional climbing, I've done tons of other things in climbing. Like most of the time you have a rope on, most of the time you're doing other sorts of things. But it's like the free soloing is what you wind up being well known for because that breaks into the mainstream a lot more.
I'm really intrigued generally by people like you who take the path less traveled in their career and then maybe nearer the end of the graph, pick up traction. And I had this piece of paper in this pen because I'd love if you could, from the age of, let's say, 80, you're now 40 years old.
Yeah, I turned 40 this year, getting old.
Could you draw a graph showing how your career looks in terms of success? You can measure that by money or attention or whatever.
Let's see. So it was kind of like
nothing.
Slow a little bit, and then like this-ish.
Yeah.
And then kind of like, nah, and then basically just like this, where you basically like kind of flat but growing, and then you have free solo where it jumps a ton. It's like kind of crazy. And then it keeps kind of growing at a slightly faster rate than before, and then it basically jumps a ton because of the building thing again.
I find this fascinating because most people in their lives wouldn't be willing to endure this phase 18 to 29 where
but it's not enduring. It's so great. Like I would do that again. I loved it so much. Like, I mean, I often think I'd be so happy to just start over from zero because like all the places that I go climbing now, I've been climbing there for 20 years and I've like done most of the things I can do. And, I've sort of like tapped out a lot of stuff in the Western US. And I'm like, man, I would love to just hit the re-zero button and start over because you'd have so much stuff to do. It's so amazing.
I guess that's the fault of my question is that I said the word endure, but you see it as...
Yeah, you get to climb every single thing you see. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like from age 18 to 30, I basically did try to climb every single thing I could see because I was just like, I'm learning, I'm growing, this is amazing, I climb everything. And like now I'm actually much more strategic about it because doing tons of easy climbing like doesn't really help me at this point. I'm not gonna make like big technique gains. It basically just makes me tired without the right kind of gains. It'd be like an elite runner just jogging for miles and miles every day. And you're kind of like, that's not going to improve your marathon time if you're already like an elite runner. It might be fun, but it's just not going to like move the needle for you.
Through this period of your life, 18 to 30, you're optimizing for just having fun, doing things you enjoy.
Well, I mean, no, I was always challenging myself. Like basically I was optimizing for like, what's the next thing I can do that pushes me a little bit.
But you weren't optimizing for how to get rich or...
Well, then I would have gotten a job. If I was optimizing for getting rich, I would have friggin' finished my college degree and gotten a job.
I say this in part because I interview so many people who pursued careers that are often considered not real jobs, like comedians or magicians. And I tend to find the same thing between the age of 18 and 30. They optimize for something that isn't necessarily being rich or famous. And then at some point, the graph looks like this.
Well, it's because, I mean, I think, I'm sure you know this, but I mean, the world really, it's like a winner-take-all economy type deal. It's like basically, if you're the dude that does the thing, all of a sudden your earnings go insane. But until you become the dude that does the thing, if you're like the best magician or the best comedian or the best whatever, then all of a sudden you make an insane amount of money. But when you're just like one of many struggling comedians, you're struggling. And so I think for me as a climber, you're sort of like, oh, I'm just a dude living in my van climbing. But then at a certain point, I'm like the dude that, I'm like, oh, you're that guy that climbs without the rope. And you're like, oh, yeah, cool. And then all of a sudden your earnings are like, phew.
Was this a difficult period of your life, this 18 to 30?
No, it was like the best. Well, obviously it was like, I was like trying to juggle, like I wanted to get a girlfriend. You're a young 20s man living alone in a car, like wanting to be better at something than you are, but not quite knowing the way, not knowing what you're doing with your life. So obviously there was tons of emotional turmoil throughout it. But no, I mean, retrospectively, it's like amazing.
And your dad passes away, which is in part, I guess, some of the catalyst for you.
Yeah, honestly, my dad passing away should be the beginning of that graph. This should basically start at 19. Because 18, I went to university. And so then starting at 19, I guess, I went on the road.
Your dad passing, what impact did that have on you outside of it somewhat liberating you to make decisions that outside of his expectations?
Well, I mean, obviously it was, it's sad, it's hard, like, and especially now I'm sort of like, oh, it's too bad that I don't have a relationship with my dad and he doesn't, that my kids don't have a grandfather and all that kind of, it's like, yeah, it's tough. I think that the most immediate impact that it had maybe was just reminding me of my own mortality. I mean, he died unexpectedly at 55, just fell over in the airport and just fell over dead, like heart attack. And so, I mean, I think that reminder of my own mortality has had a big impact on my career, my life, my climbing world, whatever.
One might not expect you to go, quote unquote, do risky things because of...
Well, no, because the thing is, I think one of the reasons that people don't do risky things is because they have this, mistaken idea that they can live forever, basically. Because people don't want to think about their own mortality. And so they're like, oh, I don't want to take any risks. I could die. And you're like, you know that you're going to die either way. And either way, when you die, you're going to be bummed that you didn't live longer because, it's like the life expectancy in the U.S. is 78. And you're like, great. Say you make it for men, whatever. Like, say you make it that far, you're still going to be like, man, I wish I had 22 more years to like watch my grandkids graduate college or whatever. It's like, it's still going to feel like too little. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of like, you're better off dying at 55 in an accident, but having done many things that you're proud of and, led a life that you're proud of, than dying at 78 and still wishing you had more, but having done none of the things that you wanted to do.
It is interesting. It does appear that people live as if we think we're going to live forever.
Yeah, it's totally insane. I mean, everyone's like, oh, I don't take any risk. And you're like, yeah, well, you can take no risk in your life and you're still going to freaking die. So you might as well take smart, calculated risks and do all the things that you want to do and at least die happy when you go.
What does this mean to you to like live intentionally?
Well, that's exactly it. Like choosing the risk that you're willing to take, making choices, like using your time the way you want to use it.
I was looking at, I think it was your personality, a personality test you did. And it said you...
Mike, did I do a personality test? I'm like, how much material do you have? I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, how many things do you have?
I have unlimited things.
I know. I'm so impressed.
On this personality test, it says you're higher on thrill-seeking and sensation-seeking, but then also significantly higher than the average male on urgency, which I think kind of overlays with what you were just saying there of like making the decision to do something.
Yeah, basically because your time is short and you're going to die. So get on with it.
It says here you're higher on conscientiousness.
Very polite,
Thrill-seeking, sensation-seeking. You're low on boredom.
I think low on boredom means that, you don't get bored.
Perseverance, you're very high on perseverance.
Yeah, I think that's the same as low on boredom.
And low on neuroticism.
That's for sure.
And so what's the definition of the word neuroticism? Is it like...
Well, I think it's like I'm sure there's a clinical definition, but I think of it as sort of general anxiety type stuff. Like, people spinning in their heads about things that don't matter.
And has that always been the case when you look back through your life and the feedback you've had as a kid and a teenager? Kind
of, yeah. I think so. I think I've never been too concerned about... I don't spin. I mean, obviously, occasionally I stress about things, but just not the way I think a lot of people do.
I'm trying to figure out if that's a learned behavior or maybe a little bit learned and a little bit from your upbringing, genetics, whatever it might be. Because can one learn that? Can one learn to be less neurotic?
Well, presumably. I mean, like meditation, things like that, I think people can sort of find a way to let go of certain things.
Isn't this quite interesting when people ask you questions inevitably about fear and how you take on such, to muggles like me, terrifying challenges? There's an element of all of this, which is you do have a nature and a nurture, which somewhat is impossible for someone like me to replicate because your brain and my brain are completely different. Your parents, your early contacts when your brain was being wired and mallenated are completely different to mine. So, I always find this is the trouble of giving people advice is we're dealing with different
natures.
Different natures.
But I do feel like in my case, the biggest difference in nature is the fact that I've just always loved climbing. Because I think that nurture is the majority of this. Like if you spend 30 years training a thing, you're going to get better at the thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the biggest difference between me and somebody who's not into rock climbing is that I freaking love rock climbing. I could go out, I could do it 10 days a week if I could. You know what I mean? But sadly, I get too tired and my body breaks down. And so, I basically have like a limitless capacity to do the thing. I just love doing the thing. And I think that is probably the biggest difference in nature, because everything else you can kind of overcome, like if you loved rock climbing as much as I love rock climbing, no matter what your genetic disposition towards like neuroticism and all that stuff, you would just kind of work through all that stuff and you'd find your own path to getting good at climbing, basically.
If your kids came to you have two girls, right?
Yeah.
If they came to you and said, Dad, give me advice on what I should aim at in life, would you tell them?
I wouldn't give them advice. I'd be like, you do you. You find the thing you love to do, go hard, basically learn some skills, get good at something. Like, what do you like to do? I mean, that's kind of the thing for me, especially with climbing, is like, if someone had told me, you're going to train climbing for the rest of your life, I'd be like, oh, that sounds like kind of a grind, Because, I mean, it is hard work. You're, hiking uphill with a heavy backpack, and it's cold and it's windy. It's basically physically uncomfortable. I mean, being a professional rock climber means that you're physically uncomfortable all the time, like often, like it's, it's hard.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it because you freaking love doing it, it doesn't feel very hard. And so, I mean, I think the key for a kid is find the thing that doesn't feel like hard work.
And when you started, were you scared of big, tall rock faces and stuff like that?
I mean, yeah, I had like a healthy intimidation of things. I mean, like my first season in Yosemite, the first time seeing El Cap as a climber, I was 19, and it looks impossible. It looks completely insane. I was like, that's so big. But then, within a couple seasons, I climbed some bigger walls, learned how to climb, and then a friend and I had the sort of season goal, like we were going to climb Yosemite all season with the aspiration at the end to climb El Cap in a day. So basically there was this long progression on El Cap specifically where it's like you go from just trying to get up it to trying to get up it faster to trying to get up it with just your hands and feet, still using protection. But basically there's like all these steps you can take. And so over a bunch of seasons, I climbed El Cap like 60 times, different routes, all these different things. And then eventually you're sort of like, oh, maybe I can start thinking about free soloing it, which is where the film Free Solo comes in. And then eventually you do this thing. But then people are like, well, aren't you scared? And you're kind of like, whoa, I've spent 10 years like building up on this thing.
I guess that's what people don't see.
Yeah.
So they just...
I mean, like the documentary Free Solo, I think does a pretty good job of showing the direct preparation, like the training involved in doing that specific climb. But it just doesn't show the like 8 years before that, I guess. Because the documentary was filmed over 2 years. And I guess I've been going since 2006. So it was 9 years before that I've been going to Yosemite. And I've been spending maybe 3 months a year climbing walls.
I guess that's the illusion of like all people that do great things and then become like athletes or sprinters or whatever, Ronaldo or Messi, is you don't get to see the
whole life that they put into doing the thing.
Yeah. So it looks like a magic trick when we see the outcome. Like we show up on Netflix to watch you climb Taipei. We're like, whoa, he's hanging with it from his leg.
Yeah, I mean, people watch some of those programs and they're like, he just walked up and did it. And you're like, well, yeah, after 30 years of practice, like I just walked up and did it. But no, it's not like just walking up and doing it.
One of the illusions,
I've literally been climbing 5 days a week for 30 years. Like that's so much climbing. Like I freaking love climbing and I climb a lot.
On this idea of like exposure therapy as it relates to like fear and anxiety and confronting one's things that terrify them, was that in the early days, I'm trying to understand, were you like scared at some point?
Oh, all the time. That's actually something that I think, I've obviously done so many interviews around fear and like managing fear and all that. And I've talked about fear a lot of different ways over the years. And I think as I've gotten older, I've sort of come to realize that actually you're just scared all the time as a climber, like low level fear, but climbing is fundamentally scary. Like it's always kind of scary because there are always consequences. Like even if you're climbing with a rope, you're still always visualizing like what happens if the rope breaks? Like what if, like is this safe? Like, is the gear good? Like is this actually safe? And so you're always a little bit scared. And so after years and years of always being scared, you get pretty good at managing that kind of stuff.
Because there's a lot of sort of misconceptions swirling around this brain scan you did.
Yeah, no, I hate all that stuff. That's just all from the film Free Solo. Yeah. It was like too short of a scene in the film. They needed a little more. They needed to let it breathe, explain things a little better, I think.
So they scanned a control subject, another person scanned you, looked at the amygdala in your brain, and the conclusion that a lot of people have arrived at is that you don't experience fear because when they look at these two brain scans, your amygdala is lighting up less when you're shown scary images, basically, right?
But like shown just this image, like what does that even mean? Like my brain's purple and his brain is orange. You're like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. But no, I mean, the thing is though, and this is what I wish was explained in the film better, is that we're being shown black and white photos inside an fMRI. So you're inside a sealed metal tube, you're totally safe, you're physically safe and comfortable, and you're being shown black and white photos. And so to me, obviously that's not gonna light up the fear response in my brain because you're looking at pictures, you're like, who cares? I'm totally safe. But in a control subject, apparently your brain sort of responds to images one way or another. But I'm kind of like, I've been climbing for 20 years, so I've been like scared quite a lot. And you're kind of like, well, black and white photos start to lose their edge if you've been scared all the time for 20 years. So It's like, obviously that's not going to trigger much.
Yeah, and I imagine everybody in their life can think of it as a scenario where they have mastery that would, like a stand-up comedian looking out at a stage probably wouldn't be as scared as me.
Yeah.
Because that would terrify me. So again, this is not necessarily some sort of neurological deficiency.
No, I mean, I think the real takeaway is that I have an amygdala and it works.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because I think if the results had shown that I was missing my amygdala, then I would have I would have died already at youth because I wouldn't be able to function as a human, basically. But, had it shown something like that where there are like structural differences or like some real change, but this is basically just showing that after 20 years of conditioning, I respond differently than an average person. And you're like, yeah, no kidding. Like if you put a monk into an fMRI, their brain responds totally differently than an average person as well.
Which I actually think is a really inspiring conclusion, because it means that we can all grasp our fears better. And even, people won't know this about me, but 10 years ago, I sat down on camera with my friend Ash in his apartment to record a 2-minute video. And as I sat there, I was so scared I couldn't get the words out. So you actually, in this 2-minute video that comes out, you see it go from night and day in the background, just because we did that many cuts over 7 hours to try and get me to say 2 minutes on camera. And obviously after 10 years of being on camera, I can now speak without shitting myself. And I imagine my brain state looks significantly different because of that exposure therapy.
Totally. Yeah, you should do the fMRI. You should have done 10 years ago, because then you'd have your control, and then you do it now and it'd be totally different.
But also the psychologists I've sat with all confirm this. They talk about exposure therapy.
Yeah. And I went through exactly the same thing with public speaking. Like I was always so afraid of public speaking. I was also very shy and like just not like, it was terrifying. And now because of the Free Solo film tour and, all the public things I've done since then, I'm like basically fine. It's like you still get a little nervous, but it's like basically easy now. And you're kind of like, well, that's a total change. It's like obviously there's a tremendous capacity for humans to learn.
People talk to you about fear all the time because, your work...
Because climbing's really freaking scary. It makes sense. It's totally understandable. Yeah.
Yeah. And they also realize, I think, at some deep level that the thing holding them back from who they think they want to be or who they aspire to be is fear often. It's judgment of someone else. It's taking a risk.
Totally.
So you've become, for many people, tell me how to overcome.
Yeah. Well, I think that everyone's like, what's your hack to overcome fear? And you're like, there's no hack. You just get really freaking scared over and over for so long, and eventually it's not that scary anymore. But I will say that that's like a very enduring way to overcome your fear. It's like if you're willing to go through that process, then you are actually unafraid. Because like you can do like hacks. You can like crank up loud rock music and just go for it. And there are plenty of examples of that in what I'd call gravity assisted sports. Like say if you're going to jump a cliff on skis, like you can get to the edge, be like, this is really scary, and then be like 3, 2, 1, do it, and just like go. In climbing, you can't really do that as much because it's so slow. Like when you climb, you make one move and then you make another move. And then you're like, do I still want to be here? Like basically fear creeps in a lot more. But sort of in gravity assisted sports, you can have more of that moment where you just like overcome your fear and then it happens, like making a big drop in a kayak or like skis or things like that. Whereas like once you commit, it's happening one way or another. Anyway, there's a lot to get into with like.
No, but I want to get into it. I watched a video of you climbing Half Dome, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it looks like you got scared halfway up or.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so that video is actually filmed later. So the voiceover in that video is me talking about the experience of me free soloing when I was totally alone. And I did get really scared on Half Dome, and I had this whole somewhat traumatic climbing experience near the top of the wall. But then when we went back to film it, I had a different traumatic experience while we were filming. Less traumatic, but like very scary for a moment. And they got that on camera. So they basically, in the film, they just cut the two together as like, because it shows me like being really scared.
What's Half Dome to start with? And then what was the traumatic experience?
Yeah, so Half Dome, for anyone who hasn't seen, is this just totally amazing wall in Yosemite. It's a 2,000-foot granite face. Actually, it's the North Face logo. That's Half Dome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like an iconic wall in Yosemite. It looks like half of a dome, but actually it's more like a hockey puck just shoved in. It's actually a full dome, depending how you look at it. But the Northwest face is vertical for 2,000 feet. It's incredible. And so I free soloed. That was one of the first like major free solos I did in 2008. And one of the things that sort of made me a professional climber in a way. But when I did the climb, I did the bare minimum preparation. I basically like didn't know. It was the biggest thing I'd ever free soloed. I didn't quite know how to like go about getting ready for it. Anyway, I climbed it and basically hadn't practiced enough. Was really freaking scared. Got off route, got confused, skipped some stuff, and then at the very top had this whole moment of extreme panic. Basically like got up into some stuff and all sort of like crumbled mentally and like sort of barely managed to finish this upper slab. Like the hardest part of the climb was like right near the top. I was trying to walk across this ledge. Basically, I've walked across that ledge face in and face out. And normally people hand traverse it or they crawl across it. There are like different ways to go across the ledge. And I've done it every which way. And then we were up there filming and I was like, oh, I'm going to walk it face out. But it turns out when you walk it face out, it's really freaking scary. And so I made it kind of halfway and was like, oh my gosh, and then bailed.
And when you say you were having like a crisis in your mind, what is that? Is that just, oh my God, what am I, like, how does that sound when you panic?
So in this case, so walking across this ledge, it's like it starts maybe as a foot wide, so your foot is fully on the ledge and you're shuffling across it. But then at a certain point, that's
put the video, put it on the screen for anyone watching.
Yeah, that's the ledge. But basically at the narrowest part, your feet are sticking out over the lip of it and the wall bulges ever so slightly. So it forces your back out a little. And so you're basically like rocking on your heels with, I don't know, like a 1,700 foot drop or something, or 1,800 foot drop, like straight down below you. And so, it's like it's pretty intense. Anyway, and so I thought I was going to walk across it like that. And I made it to the bulging part and was suddenly like, oh my God, this isn't for me. And then managed to like shuffle back and change my strategy.
Is it like panic in your head?
It's not panic, but you're like, oh, I made the wrong choice. Like, this is bad. I mean, it's not like full, like 5 alarm bell, like panic. But yeah, you're like, oh, I'm so screwed.
And you have fallen a long way before. I was hearing about a time when you were young and you fell off a mountain and managed to call your mother.
Yeah, though that was like sliding down an icy couloir type thing. It's a little different than like free falling off of a cliff. That's like sliding down a mountain. But yeah, I got totally messed up and yeah. Yeah, and I've like broken my arm several times as a kid falling off things. And then with a rope as a climber, you take big falls like routinely, when you have protection. That's like part of the sport basically. I mean, it's certainly easy to visualize falling 1,700. When you're like standing on a little ledge and it's bulging and you're looking down, it's easy to be like, oh my God. It's like if you just bend forward a little bit, you're just going to take a swan dive like 1,700 feet to the ground.
The stats in this sport are, of fatalities. How do they compare to other sports?
Safer than you would think. That's the thing is everyone thinks it seems crazy, but it's not that crazy. I don't know actual statistics, but I suspect that it's actually pretty comparable to skiing or something, because like recreational skiers die all the time, like falling into tree wells or like going off cliffs by accident or things like that. Climbing is actually surprisingly safe, which is one of the things I love about climbing. I mean, climbing is very sort of binary where it's like either you're totally safe or you're going to die. And the odds of you dying are very, very, very small, but because they're there, they always keep you on. You know what I mean? Like it basically keeps you alert, but you're never really going to get hurt.
Is that including free soloing?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part. I mean, a couple people have died free soloing. I mean, people occasionally die free soloing for sure. But actually most of the sort of cutting edge free soloists have not died soloing. They've like died in other things.
I think it was in the documentary on Netflix, Free Solo, where one of your colleagues.
Yeah, Tommy is like, most free solos are dead now, which is kind of true, but it's slightly misstated. I mean, he's just like speaking off the cuff, and it's not like strictly true. Like a couple of the best free solos have died free soloing, though they died on very easy terrain. But then the majority of other great free solos have died in sort of climbing adjacent accidents, like wingsuit base jumping, and like one got swept to sea by a rogue wave. Like while he was out climbing a sea cliff, but he was like standing on shore and got swept out to sea. Things like that where you're just kind of like, obviously they're taking risks in their lives and they wind up dead, but it's not the way that people think. You see a photo like that and you're like, free soloing, you're going to die for sure. And you're kind of like, well, people don't actually really die that way. I mean, they have. I mean, not to say that it doesn't happen, but way less frequently than people would suspect.
If I was to try and professionally torture you, and again, I'm not talking in extremes here, but what life would I prescribe you to live?
Oh, being like a finance bro or something. Having to like just work spreadsheets my whole life. Is that what you mean? Like
yeah.
What is my like worst? I don't know, something like that. Or honestly being like a choreographer for dance or something. Like I couldn't do like, or being like an opera singer. Like I would just kill myself. I just couldn't do that.
Why would being a finance bro be like the worst thing for Alex?
Just the idea of sitting at a computer in a cubicle, just like typing. I mean, I'm kind of contrarian. I don't like rules. I don't want to like jump through hoops. I don't want to do arbitrary things. Like I don't want some manager to come and tell me like, oh, you got to file that report again. You like missed a line. I'd be like, you go F or so, I would just like walk out of the building. Like I just like, don't know if I could take that. I'd be like, no.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.